This document discusses the battle at Lexington Green in 1775 and discusses the shot heard around the world. Now, we all know about what has been happening with the American Revolution, but we don't often get to hear right from a person himself. And here we go. 23-year-old Sylvanus Wood was one of the Lexington militia who answered the call that spring morning. Several years after the event, he committed his recollection to paper in this affidavit, sworn before a justice of the peace. This was first published in 1858. So as the Battle of Lexington was in 1775, you can make whatever of this that you will. However, Sylvanus Wood was 23 at the time of the Battle of Lexington, and this is his account. He does tell us here that he lived in the county of Middlesex in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He is 74 at the time he's recording this. And he says that about an hour before the break of day, on that day, he heard the Lexington bell ring, and fearing there was difficulty, he immediately arose, took his gun, and with Robert Douglas went in haste to Lexington, which was about 3 miles distant. Here is his story. When I arrived there, I inquired of Captain Parker, the commander of the Lexington Company, what was the news. Parker told me he did not know what to believe, for a man had come up about a half an hour before and informed him that the British troops were not on the road. But while we were talking, a messenger came up and told the captain that the British troops were within half a mile. Parker immediately turned to his drummer, William Diamond, and ordered him to beat to arms, which was done. Captain Parker then asked me if I would parade with his company. I told him I would. Parker then asked me if the young man with me would parade. I spoke to Douglas, and he said he would follow the captain and me. By this time, many of the company had gathered around the captain at the hearing of the drum, where we stood, which was about halfway between the meeting house and Buckman's Tavern. Parker says to his men, "Every man of you who is equipped, follow me, and those of you who are not equipped, go into the meeting house and furnish yourselves from the magazine, and immediately join the company." Parker led those of us who were equipped, or armed, to the north end of Lexington Common near the Bedford Road, and formed us in single file. I was stationed about in the center of the company. While we were standing, I left my place and went from one end of the company to the other and counted every man who was paraded, and the whole number was 38, and no more. Just as I had finished and got back to my place, I perceived the British troops had arrived on the spot between the meeting house and Buckman's, near where Captain Parker stood when he first led off his men. The British troops immediately wheeled so as to cut off those troops who had gone into the meeting house. The British troops approached us rapidly in platoons, with a general officer on horseback at their head. The officer came up to within about 2 rods of the center of the company where I stood, the first platoon being about 3 rods distant. They there halted. The officer then swung his sword and said, "Lay down your arms, you damned rebels, or you're all dead men. Fire!" Some guns were fired by the British at us from the first platoon, but no person was killed or hurt, being probably charged only with powder. Just at this time, Captain Parker ordered every man to take care of himself. The company immediately dispersed, and while the company was dispersing and leaping over the wall, the second platoon of the British fired and killed some of our men. There was not a gun fired by any of Captain Parker's company within my knowledge. I was so situated that I must have known it, had anything of the kind taken place, being a total dispersion of our company. I had been intimately acquainted with the inhabitants of Lexington, and particularly with those of Captain Parker's company, and with one exception, I have never heard any of them say or pretend that there was any firing at the British from Parker's company, or any individual in it, until within a year or two. One member of the company told me many years since that after Parker's company had dispersed and he was at some distance, he gave them the guts of his gun. And that concludes Sylvanus Wood's account. It happened when he was 23, but he didn't record it until he was 74.